Hey folks, as some of you know, last week I did the New York Comedy Fest and it was great. And those of you who were there, I want to thank you for coming. And I also want to take a second to thank longtime WTF sponsor, Comedy Central, for helping to put together the event. One of the things that Comedy Central does, in addition to featuring people like Amy Schumer, Hannibal Buress, Bill Cosby, me, is they allow up-and-coming comics to take a bigger stage with their Comics to Watch series. They recorded all of those sets at the festival, and if you want to watch them, go to ComedyCentral.com or on the free Comedy Central app. It's an awesome place to see some future WTF guests. Check it out, and big thanks again to Comedy Central. We're also sponsored today by Squarespace. Squarespace recently launched the latest version of their platform, Squarespace 7, which has a completely redesigned interface, integrations with Getty Images and Google Apps, 15 new templates, and an incredible feature called Cover Pages. Try the new Squarespace at squarespace.com and enter offer code MARC, M-A-R-C, at checkout to get 10% off. That's MARC, M-A-R-C, at checkout. Squarespace. Start here, go anywhere. All right, let's get on with the show.
Lock the gate!
All right, let's do this. How are you, what the fuckers, what the fuck buddies, what the fucking ears, what the fuck nicks, what the fuckstables? What the fuckleberry fins? What the fuckadelics? This is Marc Maron. This is my show. This is WTF. Welcome. I'm excited about today's show. I genuinely am excited. I'm genuinely excited about most shows, but Allie Brosh is on the show today. And I don't know if you're familiar with Allie Brosh, but she's a fucking genius. She's hilarious. Nobody has made me laugh more than her in a long time. Her book and her blog, Hyperbole and a Half. There's a new edition out now. It's a updated, it's a new edition of the book. It's got the animated panels. It's got her sort of take on her life, which is very specific and very personal, but very relatable if you're like me. So if you like this show and you like me and you're a sensitive, maybe slightly dark person struggling with certain things that you're up against within your own mind on a day-to-day basis where the minutia just becomes paralyzing and overwhelming, well, this is a book for you. It's hilarious. I guarantee you, it'll make you feel better and make you laugh. And I don't have to say this. It was not easy to get her. I mean, she lives up in the hills somewhere, up north. And I had to, pull her down off of the mountain to get her to hang out and talk to me. And it was amazing for me. Because I know some of you struggle with the war with self, the war with bad patterns, the war with sadness, the war with anxiety, the war with depression. How are you going to get through it? You're going to get on some medicine? Are you going to just fight your way through it? Are you going to eat your way through it? Are you going to exercise your way through it? Are you going to create your way through it? Are you going to keep plowing and talking and doing things until it's out of you? How long does this exorcism take? How long will it take to get the shit filter cleaned within me? There's there is a filter, a scrim. There is something that reality passes through as it passes through my brain before it gets to my heart. And it just turns things slightly dark. It's sort of like, how do I open the aperture, man? Well, I can experience things as they are relative to my perception of them. Not everything is dark, but you know what I'm saying. I was on stage last night at the Tripany House, or the night before last, it would be. People have been great. So I'm so glad that you guys came out. Had a couple of women open for me. Gene Whitney opened for me. Ashley Barnhill opened for me. They did a couple of 10-minute sets. Then I went out there and talked about me for about an hour and a half or so. But it's weird with me, and I know maybe some of you can relate to it, and I think I touch on some of this stuff with Allie, is that, you're always going to come up against yourself eventually, and sometimes you arrive at the same place. You think you've gone through some changes, you think you've made some progress, and certainly you probably have, but then that old feeling comes back, just this feeling of like, oh, fuck, what, this is it? And that's like a filter problem. Yes, this is it. But it was no different than when you were feeling good a day or two ago, or when you felt great about that thing you did or whatever. You're not a different person. I just don't know why those things don't get cataloged properly. Once you start cataloging the good things or the progress you're making, you shouldn't have to regress back to the shit zone. You know what I mean? Why do I always, end up backed into the shit zone? I just ran, 70 yards. And now I'm in the other side. I'm at the beginning. I'm at the shit zone again. I mean, obviously it gets a little easier to get out of that. Perhaps you just have to create your way out of it or feel your way out of it. But for me, it becomes sort of interesting because I don't want to be a guy that just spins the same fucking plates all day long. I don't want to be a guy that just kind of repeats cycles. So something's got to give. I mean, I gotta cure cancer or something. I gotta do something. I mean, that's a little high. That's a high expectation to put it myself. I don't have any, I don't even have a Bunsen burner. So I don't have any safety goggles. So right out of the gate, the cancer cure is not going to happen unless I can do it, with a cast iron pan and some basic spices. Some people think you can. I don't think that's my journey in life. We're sponsored today by Squarespace. You might remember a little while ago, we asked anyone who made a website using Squarespace to send us a link using the hashtag WTF Squarespace. And we were just actually, honestly, blown away by the response. I never thought we would get so many responses. A lot of talented artists and musicians and photographers and filmmakers listen to this show and use Squarespace to make their websites. RoyalDecaDesign.com is going to get a year of Squarespace business package for free. But go check them all out at the hashtag WTF Squarespace. And if you think you already know everything about Squarespace, how about all new Squarespace 7? Squarespace 7 comes with a newly designed interface and 15 new templates, but so much more too. It now integrates with Google Apps so you can connect to your Gmail, your Google Drive for cloud storage, and a lot more stuff here, folks. And Squarespace is now partnered with Getty Images so you can take care of all your stock image needs in the same place you manage your site. And of course, all this comes with the classic Squarespace features. Beautiful design with simple, easy-to-use functions and 24/7 support, and it's only $8 a month. That's a hell of a deal. And you get a free domain if you buy Squarespace for the year. Start a trial with no credit card required and start building your website today. When you decide to sign up at squarespace.com, make sure to use the offer code MARC, that's M-A-R-C, to get 10% off your first purchase. Squarespace. Start here, go anywhere. Oh my God! What? Joel McHale's here.
Hi.
What are you doing? I was just sitting down to do some things.
You're a dead man.
What? Don't put the knife down.
Finally, payback.
Yeah, no guest. I've had that thing on here forever. Like, I leave a lot of things for people to play with. Mm-hmm. No one's ever opened the knife. You have some hostility inside you. And now the hammer. The broken hammer.
Broken hammer.
Sit down at the mic.
Didn't you see
Relax.
I know that you saw Deliver Us from Evil, where I had a very long knife fight.
Oh, of course, yeah.
I'm so glad you enjoyed that.
I'll pretend. Oh, right, of course.
Right. That was when I was nominated for all of the awards.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
I don't like I
got an NAACP award for that.
Wow!
Yeah, incredible.
It's amazing that I saw it and I can't remember it.
See?
Yeah.
It's so shocking.
What are you doing? How often are you going to the gym?
40 minutes a day is my thing.
40 minutes a day.
40 minutes a day.
What do you do? Like, your arms are bigger than your torso. I mean, what? You like that?
So much.
40 minutes a day.
You hear that, folks? 40 minutes. You got to be intense. You can't just sit on a elliptical with a magazine open and talking on the phone. That's not how I do it.
Okay, well, what do? Do you just enter in a panic, jacked up? And just get in it?
Usually I have about 6 shots of espresso.
Sure.
A lot of anabolic steroids. I drink them. And then...
So pretty healthy.
Yeah, very healthy. I have a lot of acne on my back. My balls have shrunken down to nothing. No,
great.
But if you do 40 minutes a day, you'll notice a huge difference, my friend. Or, if you can't do that, start with... I'm not kidding when I say that. Start with 10 push-ups today. And then tomorrow, do 11.
You don't think I can do 10 push-ups?
No.
You don't?
Not with a rigid body. Look, I'm just trying to create controversy. Marc Maron's about to do some... Here we go.
Stay on the mic.
Let's go. All right, here we go.
Rigid body push-ups?
What?
10 rigid body
10
push-ups.
rigid... Oh, no. Drop your butt a little bit. Drop your butt. There you go. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, he's giving up, guys. I know, he's doing it. He's doing it. Look at that. Rigid. He's a strong man. He did it. He's doing more than 10.
Boom!
Now let's see how much.
Let's see whose dick is bigger. Come on!
I guarantee
Take
yours
it out!
is. All right, I'll take it out.
Oh my God!
It's the humanity.
So
how do you feel?
I feel great. So I'm done for the day?
You're done for the day. Tomorrow, 11. And I'm not kidding. So by next week,
Yeah.
you'll be doing, 17 push-ups in a row. And
I
then
used to, look, I just have to get on it. So you're saying 40 minutes a day. How many days are cardio?
I'll do 10 minutes of cardio one day, or 40 minutes one. I can't believe I'm talking about that. But 40 minutes one day, or it'll be all weights. And then you always gotta stretch.
I stretch. I know.
good.
I know how to do this stuff. I've done it in my life. I'm just not as consistent about it
Right.
now. Is this why we are talking?
Well,
Is this-
I have a good motivation, which
What?
is because I want to impress my children. No,
How's
kids,
that-
come out.
How's that going?
No, because I'm half naked on Community, so we're getting ready to shoot it, so I don't want to. It's a great way to motivate yourself if you know you might be half naked soon on television.
Right. And
Or on Yahoo Screen.
yeah. Is it? So you're going to shoot a half naked thing?
I'm I am anticipating it. I haven't seen the scripts yet, but Dan Harmon usually writes something in.
So what's going on with that? It's all systems go. You're still.
It's all literally the hour before all our contracts expired, Sony closed the deal with Yahoo, which is relaunching its internet portal, and it is called Yahoo Screen, and we're like their first show. It's because I don't know what the matrix they used to figure out that there was enough online presence for people to spend 50 cents or $1 for the episodes. And are you going to vomit?
No.
I'm kidding. And so here we are.
So Community's back.
Community's back
for 50 cents a pop or whatever.
Whatever it is. So, but now no commercials, and it's Dan will have
full control.
He will have full control. The canvas is open and bare and ready.
Look out.
Yeah, so I'm very
excited. The maniac is loose.
Yeah, I'm very
The genius.
Excited.
Yes. So, Merry Friggin' Christmas is your first big lead.
It's my first lead. Yeah, lead.
Lead role.
Yeah.
Good cast.
No, not at all. Really.
It's great cast.
Hacks.
What are you kidding me? Candice Bergen, Lauren Graham.
Yep. Clark Duke.
Robin Williams. Was this his last movie?
Yes, it was. And I should say Tim Heidecker's in it too.
Heidecker. So you guys
and Wendy McClintock-Coven.
So you're going after all the age groups.
We're getting everyone.
Yeah, you get the
getting all the hipsters that watch Adult Swim.
Yeah.
Then you get Wendy, who's on a very traditional sitcom and every big comedy.
Right.
You get Candice Bergen, who was part of the biggest one ever. Clark Duke, who's Mr. Hip and Cool from The Office.
Super nerd, but
these super nerds are not super nerds.
And who directed it?
Tristram Shapiro.
And you knew him from
Community. He's directed more episodes of Community. So it was going to be the Russo brothers who were the executive producers and directed a bunch of Communities. But then they got a little movie called Captain America 2, which took precedence over this tiny little movie.
Merry Friggin' Christmas.
And the Russos and we courted Robin. We went up to Marin to convince him to be in the movie. This was now 3 years ago. And he amazingly said yes. So, now that with everything that's happened, it's hard for me to even talk about the guy and without everything that happens when you think about someone who's just died. So
it's profoundly sad. But I mean, I imagine that it must have been. You have very tangible, real memories of working with the guy.
Yeah.
And was it pretty amazing? It
was amazing.
Yeah.
I will be able to tell my great grandchildren, if I get to that point, that I got to work with him.
Yeah.
And he was, as you know, I mean, you knew him, and he was there's that stupid phrase, never meet your heroes.
Yeah.
He is exactly the hero you want to meet.
Great guy.
He was such a good guy, and everyone I've now post his death is always like, but did you notice anything? I was like, what are you talking about? And then they would say, he was just always on, right? And I was like, no.
Yeah.
He was always a good guy.
Yeah.
And he was always very funny, but it wasn't like it's not like he had to he wasn't one of those guys that had to walk in a room and dominate it, which he just walked into a room and he was there, and that made him dominate it.
Sure, but he's a very collaborative guy, and he was generous with with other actors, right?
He's such a good example to follow. I mean, for the way he was on set was just like you could tell that he wants to make everyone look good,
right?
And he wasn't trying to score all the time.
Which is tremendous that we have this movie. I mean, because I don't, after his death, there was obviously a lot of tributes, and you look at the past movies again, but now you have this interesting document and this great little part that no one's seen before. Yeah, and it's Robin being acting. It's a little he's acting a little cranky, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
what is exactly
he plays a real jerk of a father.
Your dad,
my dad, and who also is tells funny, has a good sense of humor, because I think that he is a real jerk, but he's playing a guy. The jokes come from his character in that we do not like each other.
How much improvising?
I would say, I don't know,
a bit,
definitely. Yeah. Once scenes kind of got moving, we kind of.
So, what is the story?
It is about I play a father with children, and my wife is Lauren Graham, and we decide to through a happenstance. Clark Duke plays my brother, and he accidentally schedules the baptism of his illegitimate child on Christmas Eve, meaning I have to go to see my parents, who I haven't seen in years. And we go there. It's fights, not
and Clark
good.
who does he play?
My brother.
Okay.
So, because we look alike.
Yeah.
And Robin and I are the same height.
Sure.
So it works out perfect.
You never know.
It was good that Candace played my mom, because we do kind of look alike.
So, someone had to have the genetic, credibility.
Yes. Yeah. We need the Nordic.
So it's like a dark, crazy Christmas.
Right, and then I forget in my haste and my stress to get everybody to my parents' home, I forget all the gifts. So I was like, well, if I just drive back 4 hours and drive back, then I can make it. And through, so it becomes like a road movie where Robin's character has to help me. Yeah. And then we.
So you're in the car with Robin.
There was a lot of time on a soundstage in a car that's being quietly shook by some very nice men.
With Robin. No actual driving.
No, there was some driving, and that you'll see the truck was about as easy to control as it was like trying to drive a boat through the street.
Well, now, when something like this happens, when something horrible like this, we lost Robin, and, was there conversations about, was there any... Did they have to do anything differently, post-production? Did they go back to the drawing board? Were they concerned about anything?
I think there was, there wasn't huge concerns, but the movie's rather dark. There was selecting the poster.
Right.
We all kind of, it was like, we shouldn't put any pictures on it. Let's just have it be our names.
Right.
And then that would be... better than some wacky Christmas photo, which it's not, because it's not a wacky Christmas movie. It's got cursing in it. So.
And it's a challenging family situation.
But it's not an adult movie, and it's not a like kids movie. I would say it's a family movie that you can watch, because that's your family talks like that.
It's
probably
funny.
Yeah.
And it's dark.
It is dark, but it's not dark like Bad Santa.
I get it. Right. But hopefully, people will love it and be one of those Christmas movies.
Hopefully, it'll be the biggest Christmas movie in the history.
It's interesting, because it's odd and horrible when something like that is hanging over a movie. But like with somebody like Robin, you're sort of like, well, I want to see him again. You know what I mean? And
it's a very strange thing. Yeah, it's bizarre.
And I think that the type of sort of the way that people miss that guy, or they think they miss. There might be some sadness to it, but you still want to see him work, and you want to
Yeah, it was the strangest. The number of calls I got after his death to promote the movie was crazy. So it was everyone wanted to talk. Yeah, everyone wanted to talk about them. Talk about it. And, I get that completely, but I don't think we would have had as much response. I probably wouldn't be here.
No.
You're
no,
good.
I chose to do this.
God bless you.
I could have just pushed your movie without you.
Oh, that's true.
You know,
True.
But
I listened to your Robin, your podcast with him, and it was great.
It was one of the biggest days of my life, really.
And you
talking to
got
him.
a side of him. I don't even call it a side, but that was like,
You
that's
him.
That's him.
Yeah.
That's
And
how it is.
and now you're a guy that was, in this amazing situation where you spent a lot of time with that guy.
Yeah.
And it's a great gift, to have had that. Because I don't think a lot of people realize what a generous and sweet and thoughtful dude that guy was.
No.
And when you grow up with him or you know him as this
He's like a weird dad to you. Like,
He's
a weird,
right, but he's this huge force of nature.
Huge.
So when you're just sitting there and he's this sweet, kind of soft-spoken, very generous dude, there's still part of your brain that's sort of like, that's fucking Robin Williams. He's right there. But
he became more than just a guy. I mean, he was such a big star. He would get up before we would start shooting at 6 a.m. or whatever it was and ride his bike for an hour. I mean, it was great. And I remember we had this scene where we almost fight each other, and I grabbed his shoulder, and it was like grabbing a piece of granite.
Oh, it was solid.
He was so physically strong.
Well, I mean, I just I'm happy for you that you had that experience with him, and I'm happy that this movie is around, and that it's going to represent his talent well.
Yeah, I think, and as you were just saying, people don't realize. I mean, he was this massive star with this massive amount of talent, and he was so smart.
Yeah,
he would we were talking about doping in for the bike world. Yeah. With him,
he loved the bike races.
Yeah, he knew exactly the chemical breakdown of all the doping and how it worked. And I was like, I'm just gonna. His brain was so much bigger than people realized.
Yeah, it was on fire all the time. He was a big fan. I remember he was a big fan of the bike racing. But well, great. Well, good luck with the movie. It's great to see you.
It's nice.
Do you want me to? I can do 10 more push-ups right now.
I don't believe you.
No, we'll do it off mic, but I'm going to do it.
Yeah, why don't you hike your feet up on the edge of this desk and see if you can do it that way, and put a little more weight on your arms.
All right, so you're going to sit on my back?
Well, no. You just put your here.
I know. I know how. I know. So you
put your feet up there, and that just means
Look, I'm not.
And you get a bit different part of your body.
Your chest. I'm not here to for you to prove to me that you're a bigger man. I'm not here to do that.
I am. I don't have to prove it. I am literally a bigger man.
Get out of my garage.
Well, I can't.
Get out.
The door's too small. Let me just rip the hinges off.
Good luck with the movie.
This is I thought these podcasts were longer.
Get out.
See you later.
Well, that was nice of Joel to stop by and go see a Merry Friggin' Christmas. It's now playing in theaters and available on demand with the late, great Robin Williams and Joel and many others. Oh, my God. Brace yourselves, folks. Brace yourselves for a journey and a discussion into the edge of darkness that exists in all of us. Somewhere between our heart and mind is a moving ledge. That's right. It's within you. Folks, my producer Brendan tells me he's completely in the crapper with his fantasy football this year. In fact, he's pretty embarrassed about it and asked me not to mention it, but I think it's a good way for us to plug DraftKings, because if you suck at fantasy football this year, like Brendan does, you can turn it all around with DraftKings. It's America's favorite one-week fantasy football site. 1 week fantasy means no season-long commitments. Play whenever you want. Got an injured player? Not a problem at DraftKings, where it's like a new season every week. So you don't have to be a sad sack for the rest of the year. You hear what I'm saying? Pick your team in minutes and enter to win instant cash. There's a guy who won $100,000 his first time playing. No, I'm not. That's the truth. DraftKings has even had $1 million winner in one day, $1 million. Hurry and get free entry into the $100,000 fantasy football contest this weekend, where first place takes home $10,000. Head over to DraftKings.com now and enter promo code WTF to play for free. DraftKings.com. Bigger events, bigger winnings, bigger millionaires. Enter WTF for free entry now at DraftKings.com. I cannot even begin to express what an honor it is to share with you this conversation I had with Allie Brosh. I have a tremendous amount of respect for her personally, for her journey as an individual, and the way she found her art and her mode of expression. It's just I love her, and her book Hyperbole and a Half is just it's relieving, it's hilarious, and it's deep. So let's talk to Allie Brosh now. I want to make sure I pronounce your last name right. Brosh?
Yes.
Allie Brosh.
You got it.
Now, I didn't know anything about you until I got this book. Mm-hmm. But a lot of people knew about you, and that made me upset.
I suppose so.
Like, I feel like I'm always late to the game. And this book comes out, and then I read it, and I identify too deeply with it. It's problematic, but hilarious. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I'm thinking like, how is this person staying alive in the world?
I wonder that all the time. So that's the biggest mystery of my life.
But I mean, like you seem okay.
I carry it off much better than I think than the reality is.
How old are you? Do you talk about that?
I'm 29.
You're 29, so you're a young person.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you were not planning on being a cartoon artist.
No, it just sort of happened. I actually studied human biology in college, and I was planning on being a scientist, but then panicked at the last moment and decided to try other things.
You seem to be proficient on your computer with this animating program.
That's a lofty way to put it. Animating program. Oh yeah, it's like a little doodly program. Like
I don't know what it is. See, like I don't even know that much. Like I could do research on you and learn the name of things. I think I did. Was it called Paintbrush or Paint?
Yeah, Paintbrush. What
does it just come on a computer?
Yeah, it's like a free download thing. It's like MS Paint, sort of.
Yeah.
Where you just sort of. It has a little brush tool and a fill tool, and
so that's it.
Yeah,
you don't need to know. There's no steps.
I mean, like steps as in like I have to put down different lines, but no more than that.
And you just drag around. And that's
just drag it around. I have a trackpad.
But once you created the version of you that is a cartoon you, how do you repeat that over and over again? Is there can you just bring that guy up, that person?
Yeah, it's sort of like It took a while to get to that final form, but I sort of have it in my head now.
Yeah.
It's just like
how did this form evolve?
So
we're going to go back, but we're in this now.
Okay. So when I sit down to write something or convey something, I have an image or a feeling in my head that I'm trying to transfer to whoever I'm communicating with, relatively unadulterated, from my head to theirs. And
through this medium, through words and the paintbrush.
Yeah. And so with pictures, I have this abstract concept that I'm trying to put down on the page and communicate. And that was just sort of the best way that I figured out how to do it.
Because it was simple.
It was simple. And that's really what I'm like on the inside. I feel like that picture is more me than I am. But
you decided that after because you chose this medium because you were fucking around on your computer.
Yeah, it's just sort of like I feel like
it wasn't years of painting or
no. Like it just sort of. Well, this is the drawing program I have available. I'm going to use this.
Right, and this was the relationship you built with this representation of you. I imagine it evolved and you accepted it.
Yeah,
it wasn't waiting to happen. Do you know what I mean? I think if you were to conceive of yourself at some other time before Paintbrush and what your inner self looked like, it would not have been that.
Yeah, it would have had to be something else.
Yeah. All right, I've been reading too much of your book. So you grow up outside of Sacramento, horrible, and then what happens?
So we moved to Sandpoint, Idaho when I was 8.
Are your parents off the grid people? Are they?
Well, so my mom had a dream. And I'm pretty sure she just really wanted to get out of the Sacramento area, and she used this dream as the impetus, as the excuse to go.
Did she grow up in Sacramento or outside of there?
She grew up near there, a little further south.
Right. Okay.
But yeah, so she grew up in California her whole life, and I think
not interested in California.
Yeah, she wasn't. She was sick of the heat, sick of the people, a bunch of people there.
Yeah.
She wanted to get out somewhere where there was where she could just sort of live. I guess not off the grid necessarily. I feel like that's a loaded term, off the grid.
Well, I'm not saying she was a survivalist or a white supremacist or, but just sort of away.
Yeah, she wanted to get away, wanted to be in nature.
So that was her dream, nature.
Yeah, and then so she had this dream, and my mom believes in all this mysticism, dream stuff.
Yeah, she's kind of new agey.
Yeah, super new agey.
There's no coincidences.
Oh yeah, that's my mom.
Okay, certain rocks, crystals, candles.
Oh, crystals. Yes, I had to drive with a crystal in my glove box of my car. She would not let me go anywhere without it.
Do you remember what type of crystal it was?
I believe it was like an amethyst.
Okay,
or like a quartz or something.
A protecting crystal.
I think so. Yeah, it was a sort of a pinky color one.
Does she read the I Ching? Does she?
I don't know about that one. I know that she has just bookshelves of.
So she's one of those kind of new age fragmented system of understanding through many different methods that are removed from larger methods.
Yes. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, and also it functions as a way to decorate your house.
Yeah. We have crystals all over. Yeah, little points of light, she says.
Points of oh, good.
She likes the points of light.
So she's still in this.
She's very much still in this.
And is she a healer of any kind?
No, she just sort of likes it, and it's very concerning to her that I'm not very spiritual, and this is a great point of anxiety for my mother.
But her spirituality is based on so many different things. So see, she calls herself a generally spiritual person because she's aware of all these different possibilities and levels and interpretations. And okay, all right. So she ran away.
Yes. So we all moved up to northern Idaho.
Okay.
And
your dad in all this is
he's
just along for the ride, or is he a?
Yeah, he just sort of, my dad loves my mom. And when my mom gets an idea in her head that she wants to do something, my dad just, okay. And he goes.
But how does he tolerate the language around the crystals and around the possibilities of mysticism?
It's interesting. I never wondered about that until I was an adult.
Yeah.
And I think he just sort of goes with it. He knows it's important to her. And he doesn't question it, sort of just, he's more like me.
So he really loves her.
Yeah.
he's just like, okay. So he's sort of the calming influence.
Yeah, I'd say so.
So like probably despite whatever beliefs your mother has and all this other stuff, the thing that grounds her is him.
Yep. he's just sort of there, and
he's the unfluctuating constant.
Exactly.
In a world of chaos that's being managed by several different systems. Mm-hmm. Okay. Got it. So that's what you grew up in.
That's what I grew up in, yes.
And
well, there's also my aunt and my grandmother in the equation.
Yeah, some of them are in the book.
So
your
we all
aunt's
grew
in the
up.
book.
Yes.
So they were all in Idaho. They all went there at the same time.
So we were all living together in the same house in California. My mom moved back in with her mom after she and my
your
dad
father.
got married. Yes. So they all moved in with my mom's mom.
And your aunt was there.
And my aunt was there. My crazy
big
aunt.
House.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, not super big house, but.
And you're all there, which is nice to some degree. And you have a sister.
Yes.
Okay, well, just the two of you.
Mm-mm.
What?
She died.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's all right. Yeah. So that was this year.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah. It was sort of a long time coming, I think.
Was she ill?
Yes. She is bipolar.
Oh, okay.
And she just got in a real bad depression and
ended it.
Yeah.
I come from that, you know. I mean, I mean, it's in my family, and you do too, I guess. Do you have other members of your family that are bipolar?
Not bipolar. I mean, I'm depressive.
You've got that. You're classified as depressive. That's the diagnosis. Well, let's get to that. And I'm sorry to hear about your sister. That's very sad. I
compartmentalize. I deal with tragedy well, I guess you could say. I feel okay about it now. I mean, it was definitely hard, especially I was going through a really tough depressive episode at the time it happened, and so it was a little bit tougher to get through it because I couldn't navigate my feelings because I didn't know what they were doing. I couldn't feel them enough to know what they were doing.
Right. So your depression is cyclical?
Yeah, I'd say. I mean, for the last 4 years, I've pretty much just been depressed to varying levels. It gets worse sometimes, and then sometimes it's
for the last 4 years.
About 4 years, yeah.
Holy shit, that's hard.
Yeah.
But I think that you get sort of an amazing amount of credit that's well deserved in how you navigate that illness in the book. I know that because I talk about my feelings fairly frankly on my show, and I imagine it's the same with you in the sense that you had no idea the type of relief and gratitude common, people who think like you experience when they read your stuff. Yeah,
it was really surprising to me, right? Because you think that when you're depressed, it's your own specific brand of misery. Nobody else would be able to experience or be able to relate
or
to that.
Understand it.
Yeah.
But the way you broke down in the 2 chapters in the book about depression, the way you broke down, your exact feelings of how it affects your day-to-day life and what your brain is doing, your relentless self-examination is sort of a portal in to I read your book and I said to myself, I'm like, wow, maybe I am depressed because I put that aside because my father's depressive. So but was very much sort of like, fuck that, I'm not going to be that. So I'm going to fight it like that. But there's definitely specifically the thing of like, why bother?
Yeah.
That thing.
The apathy.
Yeah. Yeah, in a way. Even if it's good things. Like, I don't even know what to buy sometimes. Like, I want to buy a thing because that'd make me happy. It's like, what's the point?
Yeah, that sounds about like the experience.
But then there's other parts that are fine.
I mean, yeah, that's pretty much how I feel when I'm in like not the absolute worst part.
Right. I got diagnosed as dysthymic once.
Yeah, that seems like a. I've heard that term. It's like a fancy word for like sort of depressed.
Yeah, sort of depressed. Just chronically sort of depressed.
Yeah, chronically like.
But don't you ever get that thing where you're like, well, who the fuck isn't? And then
I guess so, but
it
depends on how long it goes on and like whether you can feel enthusiasm.
Right.
That I feel like that's when I know I'm not doing very well if I can't feel any degree of enthusiasm about it.
So you're just flat, like it's like
exactly.
It's like a phantom limb. Like, well, I should be.
Yeah. Like cognitively, I know what like how my reaction should be to things. I can see it, so I sort of have to like reverse engineer my just every interaction that I have with things. And I'm like, oh, this is like it's very like clinical. Like this is how I would feel if I was a normal person.
Right.
And then try to do that.
It's hard to determine what normal is because I used to in stand up I used to justify depression as being a reasonable reaction. Mm-hmm. But you went up to Bend. It's beautiful. I mean, there's no reason to not feel good, right?
Yeah, well, and that's the problem is that I get down on myself about it. It's like I have a great life.
Yeah.
And there's no reason to feel depressed about anything. But that's sort of the hallmark of it is it's not about anything. Yeah,
you have to accept that. You have to accept it as a mental illness. Mm-hmm. All right, so let's go back. So you're living in this huge house with your grandma and your aunt and your mom and dad and your sister. Mm-hmm. And everybody goes to Idaho?
Everybody goes to Idaho.
Because your mom wants to?
Yes.
Powerful woman.
Yeah. I mean, she made a case for herself. I don't remember what it was. I was pretty distraught about having to leave my friends.
Yeah. But what was the life like up there? Did she buy a piece of land? Did she have a business in mind?
Yeah. So my grandma actually, had a bunch of money saved. And my grandma put down money on buying the property that we have. And it was, I imagine, pretty cheap. It's way out.
Like how many acres?
I think about 20 acres.
It's huge.
It's a huge amount of property, way out in the middle of nowhere, northern Idaho.
Pretty?
It's like, I think so. I mean, it's sort of swampy.
Does she
toward
still
the
have
lower
it?
half. Yeah, they're actually thinking about selling it
now.
Now, but yeah. So I grew up in this house. They built the house on the property to sort of keep down costs.
So it is sort of the homesteading, pleasant side of off the grid.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, we were
nice off the gridders. Did you have any weird neighbors who were the wrong kind of off gridders?
We had one weird neighbor.
Yeah.
Lyle. He was a weird guy. He'd just stand out by his mailbox and like just survey things, like look around.
Oh yeah.
Take the scene in.
Waiting for something to happen.
Just waiting for something to happen. He wanted to be the first one to just get in there when something happened.
He knew something was going to happen. He was ready.
Yeah, and so he like saw that we had moved in. And he came over, and my parents saw him just like wandering around the yard, sort of like poking around, looking at the landscaping, whatever. And they're like, "Hey, can we help you?" And he's like, "Oh, hi. You mind having me in for a beer?"
You mind?
Yeah. And my parents were like, "I guess not." I wasn't there. I've just
heard the story.
Yeah, cobbled the story together from.
Yeah, and what happened
when
Lyle came in for a beer?
He hung around for an uncomfortably long time, and finally, my dad is a very passive man. He doesn't like confrontation. But he finally just got up and was like, "Maybe it's time to go, Lyle. Maybe it's time to go home." And I was, okay. And walked away.
And is that how the relationship has remained? I mean,
pretty much.
Are they friends though? I mean, or at least
I don't think he ever came over after that. That was the only time he ever came over.
It's just added to his grudge pile. Those people are part of the problem over there.
He was the only weird one that lived right next to us.
Mm-hmm.
There was a guy. I went running one time. I was big into running in high school. And my friend was biking with me.
Yeah.
He was going to ditch the bike and then continue running with me for he didn't want to run as far as I did.
Yeah.
So he wanted to bike part of it, run part of it, and then get back on the bike, right?
Yeah.
So we stop at some bush where he can ditch his bike and we can start running. And about a mile down the road, this car speeds up to us. Yeah. And there's this guy who saw us ditch the bike. And he's like, "Well, what's that about?"
Yeah.
And we're like, "Well, we're just exercising." He's like, "Are you sure you're not terrorists?"
You didn't know that guy.
He didn't. I had no idea who he was.
See, that's
never seen him before in my
That's
life.
the Idaho I think is up there. Like there's those guys. There's the TM people, or I think have a big compound in Idaho.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then it's like this weird combination of hippies, off the grid people, like anti-government but
Yep.
Americans, and then there's the Aryan Nation people. I don't know what, but that's very funny to me because the way I picture it is that when something happens, anything happens. It's such a minimal environment that it must be so loaded
it's just
for
blown
any-
out of proportion.
Exactly.
It's just like, oh crap! There's like
That
somebody
bike's
ditched a bike.
Yeah, that's a bomb. What are
Something's
they-
going down.
Yeah, something's going down. Where?
Right. Like, if I was a terrorist, I would be the worst terrorist in the history of the world. Like, what
What are they gonna
sort of
bu-
plan is that?
Yeah.
Go out in the middle of northern Idaho where there's nobody and
Ditch a bike and then go do something.
the bike is explosive.
Yeah.
It's going to blow up the bush.
Oh, I can't believe that you grew up like that. But it must have been nice on some level. So, okay, so what was your mom's big plan, though? Just to live there? Or
Yeah, just to live there.
no
and
job, no...
she's a a computer graphics artist.
Oh, really?
So she got a job working for like a not newspaper, but those like pamphlet, like handout, like ones with like the little things that have the brain teasers and trivia
yeah.
questions on them.
She does those?
Yeah, so she did. That was the first thing she did, and then she moved.
So you kind of come from illustration, in a way.
I guess so. Yeah.
Did you watch your mom do that when you were a kid and think like, well, maybe I can do that?
I saw her doing the stuff. Like she had the like light table with the X-Acto knife. Like that's mostly the
school.
stuff that I'd see her do.
Oh, yeah. Back when people did that.
Yeah.
And what'd your dad do?
He's a sort of a jack of all trades. He's a handyman.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm. So he just goes around and says, yeah, I can build that for you?
Yeah, so he works now for a hotel chain or a chain of like restaurants and hotels, and he just goes around and fixes stuff. He's a fixer man.
Fixer. They're very important here.
Yes, he gets
in
called
LA.
at like 5:00 in the morning.
Oh,
He has
yeah.
to come in and like do something.
Some
There's an
plumbing
emergency.
thing.
Yeah. Mhm.
Something that he has to, if he can fix it, or he has to get a guy to come fix it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, the handymans in the LA area are notoriously, you just never know how your house is wired or anything. Like, if you ever get into the walls of an old house here, people are like, this is all just tape.
It's just entirely built out of tape.
Right. There's no one ever hires an electrician. They just call a guy and they have him fix it. So what'd you do in high school? Your plan was not to be this brilliant, illustrator, writer person.
It's definitely not my plan. Let's see.
You ran track.
I ran track. I ran
you're
track
into
and cross
running.
country. Yeah.
So you could run long distances.
Yeah.
Was that helpful?
It was very helpful. I feel like looking at it in retrospect, I feel like running was my attempt to self-medicate.
Yeah. That's a good choice of them.
It is. It exhausts me. I have ADD and some amount of anxiety. When I run and I exhaust myself, I don't have energy to be that way.
Yeah.
And so I can just sort of chill out.
You know what I'm thinking right now? I have to run. I have to start running again.
Yeah?
That's what
Did
I'm
you
thinking.
run?
No, I ran like a week or so ago. I was like close to getting back into the habit, and then I just went on the road to work and I ate a lot of stuff.
That's
and then,
tough.
Yeah, and then you just start eating, and you're like, oh, now I'm just.
And it's that like spiral, right?
Yeah, I'm
Where
fucked. And then
you
like
can't-
you got to pull it all back and like just start denying yourself food and start running.
So that
You do that?
Well, not exactly that, but like I know what you're talking about, like the general shape of it, where like my life will start to spiral downward in some way. Like I'll just let one thing go, and then that makes it harder to do the other things.
Yeah,
because you don't
say
feel good.
right. But you say you have an ability to compartmentalize, but not when you're going down.
Not really, because once there are too many things that pile on top of each other, it's just like, well, especially accompanied by apathy.
Yeah.
It's just like, well, how do I even get out of this?
And
like,
it's exhausting.
Yeah.
And that's where the anxiety comes in. Because that's what I learned about myself. I don't know, maybe as someone who self-examines. Like, I used to think I was like experiencing depression, but then I realized I was experiencing anxiety that became dread, and then I get exhausted.
Yes,
and that
it
looks
is
like
exhausting.
depression. Because like you're like, oh, I can't. And that moment feels like depression, but I've decided it's just the end of the anxiety cycle. That's how I've self-diagnosed.
Well, I was actually really relieved when I first became depressed, because that was the first break I'd had from anxiety. When I'm really depressed, I don't have enough anything
Energy.
in me to be anxious.
All right, so you're in high school, you're running, you're doing good in school?
Yeah, I did well until my senior year of school, and then things sort of train wrecked.
But you could have been worse. You were running, you weren't on drugs,
Yeah.
you weren't driving around drinking.
Yeah.
Huh. That's
I
good.
was doing all right. Yeah.
Yeah. What happened your senior year?
So that's when my sister started getting sick. And so when she,
How'd that manifest itself?
she became extremely manic, and the way her manic episodes manifested were she had what the psychologist called psychotic manias,
Yeah.
where she just totally lose touch with reality and
Oh, my God.
Yeah, but just do crazy things.
Yeah.
And nobody could figure out what was wrong.
Right.
My parents had no experience with this. They didn't know what it was, and so everything was sort of tumultuous. And my parents had their own struggles they were going through, and things were just weird at home.
Right.
So a little bit of that. I had my own weirdness going on, and I just couldn't cope with it. And I wanted to.
What kind of weirdness?
Probably identity stuff.
Oh, high school stuff?
Yeah, but periodically I go through a phase where I just realize, my identity's all wrong, and I have to like break it down and rebuild it from scratch.
What were you at that point? Like a jock kind of?
I've never really known what I am.
Well, who were you hanging out with in high school? Who were your friends?
A little bit of everybody.
Oh, yeah?
I was intimidated by the cool kids. I was never a cool kid.
Right.
They sort of like made an attempt to maybe I could be in that group, but I was too scared.
They reached out. They sent a representative.
And I was too scared. I was I'm not gonna.
Not cool.
Gonna
Too much
that.
pressure.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to keep up with music. And,
Yeah.
and figure out what people are wearing. So you felt like an outsider.
Oh yeah. I was always an awkward kid. Mm-hmm. I just never. I was always behind. Never knew what to do with myself or like how to be. Mm-hmm. I feel like I got most of my. My friend, my best friend, is this kid named Joey. He was a cool kid, and I never was, and I always felt very intimidated by him. And much of my early life was defined by trying to get him to think that I was cool. And he would give me advice on like how to dress.
Yeah.
So I spent my early preteen years wearing like Jinko jeans and baggy shirts.
Yeah.
Just totally.
Sure.
Like rocking the skater guy look.
Yeah. and you never felt comfortable?
I mean, I didn't fit into anybody but him. Like he didn't know what he was doing either. Is the thing. Like he didn't know what he was doing.
So he was
to me,
pulling
he
it
looked
off.
like
Right.
he looked like he knew what he was.
So
doing.
he confided into you that like, look, I don't know what's going on either.
He
So
didn't confide in me. It's just now that we're adults, I can clearly see that.
Oh,
like,
you're still friends with him?
Oh yeah.
Really? Mm-hmm. So it lasted.
Yeah.
That's great. and you initially it wasn't a dating thing. It was just pals.
No,
you just felt like
just
outsiders.
buddies.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I was like the tumor on his life. He saw that I wasn't meshing with, like, he found this group of cool friends, and I wasn't meshing with the cool friends.
What do you mean we're meshing? How does that happen? Like, what moment signifies that for you? The unmeshing.
They could just tell, like, cool kids have this sense where they can just know that you aren't one of them, right? And they can see, like, and okay, so it also didn't help that about 3 months earlier, my friend Joey had dared me to shave my head.
You did that?
I did that because he dared me to, and I didn't want to look like I was
People
chicken.
that don't know who they are can't shave their heads.
Yeah, exactly. And I didn't know who I was. And
I did that.
I hadn't worried about it up till that point, really.
It's the worst that because you can't do anything about it.
Yeah, and it grows back so slow. And
I did that once because the same reason, I think. It's horrible.
And it's awful, right? And
But I was like in my 20s.
Yeah.
And I didn't have I decided like, well, people just go to those razor cut places and they just get shaved and it's comfortable. And at that point I bought a skateboard because I wanted to hang out with the guys who could skateboard. But
Aren't they cool?
Yeah, but I couldn't skateboard. And I'm in my 20s though. I'm not in fucking high school. So I shaved my head and I had my skateboard. And at some point I just looked at my head and I just like, it was almost like there was no definition.
yeah.
It was completely horrible. But what you don't realize at that moment is that, well, with your case, because it was a dare and you were in high school and you're a woman, it was probably more impactful. But no one's looking at me going like, why does that guy have no sense of definition? But I felt that.
Right.
So you shave your head and what happened?
Well, so I was 13, I think, when I shaved my head. And it was really bad timing. It was about 2 weeks before I discovered that I'm interested in boys.
Yeah.
I had no view of self before this, no self-consciousness, nothing. Then I shaved my head and I discovered, wow, I'm not pretty. And
it was pure. Like this was unadulterated. Like
it
no
was
distraction with hair. This just
it was nothing.
Baseline.
And I had giant braces. And you know, when you do something like that, like when you do something that's so obviously like it just shows that you don't know how to fit, you know, do the things that show people you can be one of them. Like they see you and they're like, there's something wrong here.
Right, but the thing is that I don't know how you were able to track it. In terms of this weird, it's sort of a mixture of there's a fundamental missing piece to your sense of self. Mm-hmm. So I can kind of track it to like having fairly self-involved parents with no boundaries, and no one really, provided the amount of discipline for me to sort of feel like I was making decisions for myself. It just felt like I was a wild animal of some kind, who had to,
I totally feel like that.
Right. Who you kind of got to build your identity on your own.
Yeah.
And it's this weird lifelong project just to arrive in your fucking body. And I'm 50 and it only happened to me like 5 years ago. I don't know where you're at with it, but I don't know what clinically that is, but what I noticed when I was that age was that there was just this weird discomfort and paralyzing self-consciousness. That what they're sensing is not that you just don't have the ability to get out of your head.
Yeah.
Because you're constantly double checking yourself and also, and this, I'm talking a lot, but that's okay, right?
Oh, it's totally okay.
All right. So,
I like when you talk.
So, also, what I realized, because I did some of it the other night, was that you start looking, and I think you do this in your writing as well, you sort of illustrate this, is you look at everything else about you, like just decisions you're making, and this is the wrong shirt for life. That kind of thing. All it'll take is one little thing to make you completely insecure. And then you kind of change it up. Well, what if I drank that instead of this? Or maybe I should drink both of them. And they just become this horrible, spinning of.
Yes, like one thing can like destabilize the whole machine. Mm-hmm.
What the fuck is that?
I don't know, man. Let's think about it.
Was there any discipline in the house?
There was discipline. I mean, my parents were pretty hands off. Like I had a lot of freedom. My mom believed more in explaining things to me. Like instead of disciplining me, she'd say, like, this is why this was a bad decision. This is why this would have been a better decision. And she was very open about stuff. But
that's hard when you're a kid because you just want them to make the fucking decision.
I suppose so.
I mean, because that's what my mom used to do. That she used to say things like, "Do you want me to say no?" No. What is that? Just how is that going to help me? I don't know.
Yeah, maybe it's like a paralysis of having too many options.
Right. You want to sort of kind of like, can you give me a value system? Can you teach me?
You're right.
Because like that one thing I was in the book is that the idea of, good and bad, and am I a good person, am I not a good person, is that to kind of have to manage due to your own, judgment of yourself, what is right and wrong, and then to sort of assess the fact that, well, you're not a good person because you're doing all this for selfish reasons. Well, a lot of things are done, I would say most great things are done for completely selfish reasons.
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, most
it's just
things,
no one talks about it.
I mean, I don't know if it's possible to act completely unselfishly, because even if you do, like, that you did the thing, so you get to feel good about it. And so it sort of like negates.
But I do think there are people that think about others first, like, either by, training or by,
but do they do that because it's an important part of their identity? They want to be the person who puts other people first?
If they're like a Mother Teresa or something, all those people have flaws. But yeah, they might even be codependent to the point where, they don't even like themselves. So they just live through other people. I don't know. There's a lot of different options. All right. So your senior year, your sister starts to get sick. You're just growing your hair back.
I made it through. I almost didn't graduate. Because I'd missed too many days of school. Because I just I couldn't deal with being there. I just wanted to, I don't know, be somewhere else.
Were you ditching?
I was ditching school. I'd still study. Like, right. I was one of those kids who would like still read the book.
Were you still running?
I was still running, yeah.
You just weren't going to class?
Just didn't want to go into class.
Because you felt...
I've always had a problem with schedules. Like, this is, I think, why I do what I do now is because I don't really think I had any other option in my life. Like, if this this career path didn't work out...
Or didn't come to you.
Yeah. If it didn't happen, it was my only option. It's
well, thank God you found it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing comedy my whole life, and I don't know what else I would have done. And it's very similar in that, it's very immediate. You're engaged with it. When you're being funny, and you can put your thing up on the blog after you make it, and you get the reaction.
And sometimes that's terrifying.
No, it is, and I imagine.
I'm sure stand-up even more so.
But it's just weird. It's just like these are things that are immediate. You know what I mean? There's no kind of like you're not working for somebody else. You don't have to, work in a group situation.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of schooling necessary.
You get the reward right away.
Yeah.
And I guess maybe I have trouble like thinking about long-term rewards. It's tough to, it's like what we were saying earlier about the multi-step process.
I can't think. I have a hard time thinking about next week without panic.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So it's probably important for people like you and I to have something more immediate.
Well, I'm glad it worked out.
Yeah.
Right. So you almost don't graduate. So your parents, are they busting? Are they on you about it?
They actually sort of took my side with the whole thing because like my grades weren't bad. I graduated with a fine GPA and everything, but I wasn't. There's a certain amount of days that you have to be sitting in a chair in school, and I think it was my vice principal was just like, no, you can't graduate, and this was infuriating because I had a scholarship, and my parents aren't wealthy. They used their retirement fund to pay for my sister's treatments and everything. And so they didn't have money to send me to college. Yeah. And so I don't think I would have been able to go to college.
Right.
If I hadn't
gotten the scholarship.
Graduated.
Yeah.
And it was just sort of like, I'd missed the days by like I was over by like 2 days on the number of days I couldn't miss.
School.
Yeah. And so finally they settled on, okay, well I have to come to school after everybody's gone and just sit in a chair for the number of days that I missed, and then it would be forgiven.
Right.
So I just went and sat in a chair in a room to fulfill a requirement of me.
Paperwork.
Yeah.
Punishment.
Exactly. Just like sit here and think about what you've done.
Nothing other than that vice principal could say that you made the days up.
Yep.
That's ridiculous. But you did it.
I did it.
And then you went to college.
Yes.
Was that a disaster?
Sort of. Yes, sort of.
Yeah.
I feel like in college, all of the not fitting in part was just, it was
amplified.
Magnified. Amplified.
Yeah.
So I was on the track and cross country team.
At least you had that.
Well, that was where the weirdness came in. Like a lot of I never felt like I fit in on the team.
Really?
Yeah.
But it's sort of essential for a team.
It is, isn't it?
It's the idea of team.
Yeah.
Why exactly?
Well, it all started, my freshman year roommate was this girl named Julie.
Yeah.
And Julie she was terrifying to me.
Yeah.
Just the embodiment of everything terrifying to me in another person.
Really, like?
Just extremely judgmental and unforgiving. And she was cool. I could tell she was cool. And
which is bad.
Which is, yeah, I mean...
Cool, judgmental, unforgiving.
Just I was worried I wouldn't be able to keep up with her. And I wanted her to like me so bad. I wanted to be best friends with her and have her feel the same way about me that I felt about her.
Yeah.
And she didn't.
Yeah.
And it didn't go well. And it's sort of like, from there, things spiraled like...
She wasn't on the team, though. She was just your roommate. Oh, she was on the team.
And so, and I don't know what this is all about, but there's this political thing that happens sometimes where, like, if somebody doesn't like you, they have to convince other people that they're right, like that
right.
their dislike of you is correct.
Yeah, that's kind of... they have to... It's a type of bullying, I
guess so.
It's sort of a campaign.
Yeah,
to
so she should
you.
campaign against me. And
she did?
Yeah, and tell people, oh, yeah, she leaves her clothes out of her drawers and doesn't clean up. And, yeah, just weird stuff. And
so
it just hurt me deeply when I figured out that this was happening.
Because like you already feel awkward, and now there's actually a reason to feel excluded because she's a bully.
I suppose so, yeah,
Go ahead. It's okay to say it now.
I'm worried that, like, is she going to listen to this? Is she going to feel bad? Am I going to hurt Julie's feelings? Like, what if we could still be friends?
How long has it been?
Oh, gosh. So, like 10 years.
So you're still worried about Julie liking you?
Probably. Yeah, I think so. I think there's a part of me that's still like, maybe it can happen. maybe it can. maybe someday.
But wouldn't you rather the scenario be that you run into Julie again and you're like, I don't even want to be your friend now?
I guess because when I really think about it logically, I don't think Julie and I would really even get along. Like, even if she liked me, we just don't share perspective. Like, we don't have enough in common to be like, to have fun together, to be friends.
You envied her ability to move through the world.
Probably. Yeah, and I just took it as like, she didn't like me, and that bothered me. It really bothers me. Like, I have this thing where I want everybody to like me, and that's how I feel okay.
I hide it.
You hide it?
Well,
I've moved on. I think that's the phase I'm in now, where I'm trying to sort of like cover up that like underbelly.
I don't want to believe that I want everyone to like me.
Yeah, because it makes you feel weird, right?
Yeah, because it's still like an indicator that my personality is not defined.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like that my sense of self is so fragile that like I need, everyone to sort of, but I've gone out of my way through most of my career to alienate almost everybody at some point or another.
Yeah, I feel like I do that as well.
And I'm an angry person. When I get close to people, then I put them through horrible trials and tribulations.
What does that look like?
Well, if I really do get close to somebody, then I'm constantly feel like I'm either being manipulated or judged or they're lying. Like if somebody really does like me, I'm like, that's bullshit. You don't really like me. You don't have any of those?
No, I do. I'm less suspicious, less about the lying, but I think that the way that I've dealt with it is I either have to get really close to somebody or I can't really be around them because like we have to sort of tear down walls pretty early. But
this is a friend or a boyfriend or a husband.
Yes, it's something that I get really close to, and then.
But isn't it always like one person though?
Yeah, it's one person,
right? So
and you get really close to them,
right.
And it's like you're safe because you think, okay, well, at this point they've seen enough of me,
right?
That like they. I'm relatively certain that they've seen some real bad stuff, and they're still sort of here. So,
but haven't those people ever exhausted and sort of had to go like, you got to find one other friend. You need to. I need like because I used to do a joke about that. Like, you only need two friends. You need the main friend
and the backup friend. I saw that one. Yeah,
you did. You did some research, but that.
Oh no, I've been a fan of yours for a while.
But that's true, right? Mm-hmm. Like I had to pull back from putting so much to the point where I keep very few friends, like because at some point I realized like I always lock into one friend and if they can't be there for me, it's a disaster.
See, I feel like I saw that I have a tendency to do that, and I'm so scared of doing it that I get in my own head, and I think that that's where most of the anxiety comes from, is trying to self-police so that I don't get to that point. I'm so afraid of getting to
making different choices. I mean, self-police is sort of it's a, I don't know if it's a negative way, but it's certainly a hard way to make a metaphor for cognitive decision making.
A lot of times for me, it feels like self-policing, where I'll see like, I'm just always suspicious of myself, always watching myself. Like, are you going to mess this up? What are you doing?
Yeah.
Like what are you doing over there?
Yeah. Are you able to have a good time?
Yeah. Now, I feel like within the last couple of years, I've made good progress on feeling more okay with myself. Mm-hmm. My self view and my self talk has turned more into like the way you'd treat a child.
Yeah.
Like I very much talk to myself with an understanding tone, and that you would talk to like a child who doesn't know what the fuck they're doing,
as opposed to a bad parent going like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah, exactly. So it's just like, okay, what like?
Okay, look what happened. Get a towel.
Yeah, exactly. You made a mess.
So Julie, this is a problem. So you're in college and you're ostracized.
Yes, and it was...
and you had to live with her the whole time this was going on?
No, I lived with her for about 6 months, and she finally just... She quote-unquote broke up with me, the friend breakup. I was like, I'm moving. She was really angry at me for... She
probably loved you. Couldn't handle it.
I don't think so. But she got angry at me, which I would later find out the reason for, but I was very confused. I just knew that she wasn't talking to me, and it was awkward because we lived in the same room.
Yeah.
And I'm very bad at dealing with silent anger. It's okay if it's coming out, if it's coming directly at me, because
Yeah,
then I have,
yeah.
I can react to
You
it.
can lock into it, yeah.
Right, but when it's just sort of like there, and I'm forced to
That's
be
the
in a
worst.
room with it.
Passive aggressive, horrible.
Yeah, and I'd even ask her, like, is there something wrong? No, I'm fine.
That's a control thing. Fuck.
Is it?
Sure. Yeah, because like she's got you just spinning all the time.
Yeah, and so there was a few weeks of that, and then
sorry.
finally we went out to coffee, and I was thinking, oh, maybe we're gonna resolve our differences.
Yeah.
Maybe she's taking me out to coffee, and, and we're gonna be friends
So
again.
sad.
And she's like, no, I'm moving out. I was like, oh, okay. And
Heartache.
and then I moved in with a new roommate who was sort of like, she had all of the problems that I have, but like way more.
Oh, good. Well, that's
Way
good.
more.
That helps. That's helpful.
It was helpful. I mean, and we got along. I mean, it was stressful living with her, but we got along.
But it must have provided you like at least some ability to see that you're common things, to have something in common with somebody, but to realize like, wow, this could be a lot worse.
Yeah. It was definitely comforting, and I think she found comfort in the fact that like, we were both a little bit messy.
Yeah.
Like, but I was a little bit messy. She was like, she would throw garbage away under her like bed,
What?
like her.
Yeah.
We had raised beds, like lofted beds.
So she couldn't put things in the garbage?
And yeah, so no, she went, when her garbage can would fill up,
Yeah.
she would go and buy a new garbage can.
Yeah.
I went and excavated this there was a pile probably 5 feet tall of garbage at some point, and I was
Didn't
like,
it
okay.
stink?
Oh, it stunk real bad.
And this was in the place you lived?
Yes, and I'm so non-confrontational. I was just like, maybe you can like do something.
You didn't ever go like, do you smell that?
No. I was just like, well, I said, maybe we can. I made it like a group thing. Like, we can start taking out trash. Yeah.
Here we go.
And we're gonna do it.
And
she wasn't as enthusiastic about it. So,
oh my God.
So
How long did you live with her?
About 6 months again, and then I finally got my own place. And
What happened to that girl?
I don't know. I've not seen her since. I mean, we parted on good terms.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't. I don't tend to hold anger in me. I don't resent.
Were you able to have relationships with men?
Yeah. Oh, I've always found men easy to relate to.
Yeah.
I love men.
Yeah.
Not that I don't love women. I just really, really love men.
Right, but so you had with successful relationships with boyfriends and stuff, and
I always had really good relationships. I'm still good friends with a few of my boyfriends from the past, and and yeah,
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting. So they dealt. Did you find that the relationships that you usually find yourself in are like your parents, where you find a guy that just adores you and is willing to kind of?
That's a good question. I've never actually thought about the answer to that. So maybe. I mean, because my husband is a little bit like that. Like he just really loves me and goes along, and like, I mean, like, I definitely pull my weight in the relationship.
Right. Sure.
He, I helped him learn how to communicate and how to.
He didn't know how to talk?
He wasn't good at it. He would, when he'd start having feelings, he'd just sort of like panic and shut down and not want to, like, I don't know what's.
And look at the ground or just
yeah,
walk away?
or just try to like shove it away and distract himself until like the crisis was relatively.
The crisis of having a feeling?
Yeah.
That's hard to get through.
Well, it's because he didn't know what would happen if he acknowledged it. If he like said, "Okay, I'm having
any
this
feeling,
any bad feeling, so if he was stressed or sad or something, like
right.
He has an interesting relationship with grief. If he's ever grieving something, it's hard for him to deal with. And yeah, so he just tries to like put it away, which obviously doesn't let you work on
it's
the
not
thing.
good, right? Well, there's the one chapter in Hyperbole and a Half where he's upset and you realize he's upset, but you don't really want to deal with it. Like, I know that feeling, that self-consciousness of sort of like, oh God, I'm doing something else, and now like I got all right, they're up to that. I'm with them, and there's a problem.
Well, we very much have the way our relationship economy works is he does the like detail stuff. He does the responsibility stuff, like pays the bills, and I'm the emotional responsibility person.
You feel for both of you?
I feel, and I help him sort stuff out. So we do separate
You've worked
things.
that out?
Not. I mean, we just sort of realized that's how the chips fell.
That. What's he do?
He's working on becoming a game designer. That's sort of his dream. So he's
Computer games?
no board games, like
Really?
tabletop games. Yeah,
He's working on becoming one.
yeah. He decided we were both heading toward a career in science, and
You met him in college?
yeah, we met freshman year of college.
You've been with him since? Mm-hmm. Oh, that's a long run.
Yeah, it's 10 years now.
So you were okay. So let's get back to that then. So you were studying biology,
Yes,
and how'd that hit the wall?
hit the wall.
I mean, how'd you decide that wasn't your thing?
I just sort of I saw myself dreading the idea of having a career where I show up and have a list of things that I have to do. I just knew I saw. Here's how it worked. I saw
science.
I saw this life, and I know myself well enough to know when I'm gonna fail, when I'm just totally gonna fuck something up.
Yeah.
And I knew it just every day that I got closer to this reality, it was just like, I'm going to ruin my own life.
Yeah.
I know that I'm not going to be able to stick with this long enough to actually be successful with it. Like,
Yeah.
I just know this about myself. I don't have the capacity to do this.
Well, that's an important thing to know, to not self-sabotage, because you could have had a whole miserable life.
I think I probably would have been pretty miserable.
And it was just the science part of science where
Well,
you had to.
I wanted to be a doctor because somewhere in my identity, I love the idea of being a doctor. I love the concept of it.
Right. What kind would you have been?
I liked probably an internist of some sort,
Sure.
like
General?
diagnostic. Yeah.
Helping people.
Yeah, so I like the idea. So, like, helping people is very important to my identity. It's very important for me to see myself
As
helping.
somebody,
Yeah.
that's a very funny chapter too, where you're like just seeing yourself as maybe being that is sort of enough
Yeah, I'm like a pathological helper. I love helping.
in your head.
Yeah,
But do you do it in real life?
I do it. Oh yeah, like I love when if my friends have a problem. That's
Yeah.
the only time I can feel useful to my friends is when they're having problems in their lives. So like. I secretly love it when my friends will call me like, "Oh, I have this thing that like
Yeah.
I need your help to get through." Oh, you need my help? Like, I can help you.
Let me set aside some time for the rest of the day, week, month. And you do, or do you find yourself helpful?
My friends tell me that I'm helpful. I don't know if they're just being nice, but I definitely put a lot of work into it because I want to actually be helpful.
What do you mean you put work into it? Oh, into being there for them.
Yeah, because for me it's not like I have to go beyond just convincing myself that I'm helping to like where I can see that if I can see that I have helped, then it helps me convince myself more that I'm being helpful.
But do you fight the urge to sort of go like, remember that time I helped you? That's pretty good.
Yeah, I don't think I bring it up because I know that if I did that, it would negate my ability to feel good about it.
Because
I'd know that I was,
you're
yeah,
just being
I'd
selfish.
catch on to myself.
Right.
And so I'm always playing this game where I have to stay a step ahead of myself so that I don't see the game I'm playing.
Like every day?
Every day. I'm always trying to like figure out how to be this thing in my identity without alerting myself to the fact that I'm trying to be it.
Yeah.
So I can enjoy being it.
Right. And that requires some sort of vigilance, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, it's tough being vigilant without realizing you're being vigilant. It's sort of like this weird.
Right. But
like-
so it's just, I guess maybe you've been doing it long enough to where it's second nature. And it
I
doesn't-
suppose so.
Thank
Yeah,
God.
Yeah.
All right. So you turn your back on science.
Mm-hmm.
And you're dating this dude and he wanted to be science too.
Yeah.
And you both have this realization around the same time?
Mine was earlier than his.
Yeah.
So mine, I actually, in this crisis situation where I was seeing like my impending career.
Doom.
My doom that I'm just going to totally mess this all up. I know it.
Mm-hmm.
So this was right after I'd graduated from college. And I mentioned that I ran track and cross country in college.
Yeah.
So my idea was, you know what? I'm going to try to be a professional runner. That was my career plan originally.
That's a good job.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Like,
What does that even mean?
okay, so you go to races, and if you do well, you get prizes, which can range from like $10,000 to a pumpkin.
Right.
I won a pumpkin before, and
That's not a good job.
no, you can't support yourself with a pumpkin.
Yeah.
And so I,
And
yeah,
also
I was,
product endorsement, free shoes, that kind of stuff.
yeah, I guess. So that was sort of what I was angling toward.
Yeah.
Because that's what I felt like my options were at the time.
And it's very immediate for people like us. It's
Yes,
like,
exactly.
I'm running
Another
already.
immediate thing.
Right. But the pumpkin, was that the deal breaker?
No, the deal breaker was I hurt my Achilles tendon.
God damn it.
And I couldn't, so that I was unemployed and sort of just
Couldn't fulfill the occupation dream.
no. And then so yeah. And at this point, we had moved to a little town called Hamilton, Montana, because my husband got a job working in a biomedical research laboratory there. And the reason it was there is because it had the Ebola virus at the research station, and it needed to be in a very remote, tiny town so that if something went wrong, it would only kill like 3,000 people and not.
So that's where he worked?
That's where he was working. And so we're living in this itty bitty little town in middle of nowhere, Montana.
You're a victim of the Ebola virus in some weird way.
Yeah, in some weird way.
Your isolation was because of this virus.
Yeah, I like
It's
having
not the
something to
worst.
blame it on now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
thank you for that.
that part of your life was because of Ebola.
Fuck Ebola.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so this was a sort of depressing time period of my life, and I that's when I sort of started writing.
But when did you start experiencing what you now know to be clinical depression?
Probably, I feel like on some low level, it was during college.
Right.
On some very low level, but it became bad in like 2010.
You had reasons to be depressed. You were isolated.
Yeah, so then I actually had reasons.
Right, and then
And so
it
it's hard to say that was because, yeah, it's tough to say because there were reasons.
All right, so this was the dark time.
Yeah, it was sort of a dark time and then I don't know, maybe for me, I've wondered, why do I want to do comedy? And I think it's another identity thing. It's an approval seeking thing. I think that
It's also a way. No, I think that's minimizing it.
Well, for me, yeah, it was.
I'm going to tell you you're wrong about you
Okay.
right now.
Okay.
I think it's also a way of having a point of view.
Yeah.
It's a way of disarming things.
That's
It's
true.
a way of self-acceptance. It's a way of communicating with others. It's a way of understanding. It's a way of dealing with sadness, anger,
Yeah.
fear.
I mean, it definitely is a lot of things.
Yeah.
I'm wondering. I think that the motivation to start may have started with the selfish.
Sure.
For me, it started with the selfish. Like
Yeah.
I just want. I want to make
I'm not
people laugh.
denying you your experience. I'm just like, I don't want you to undersell yourself.
Yeah,
or
but
comedy.
No, I think you're correct. Now it's become more.
But
because
that moment you decided it was selfish.
Yeah, it was sort of. I wanted to do this thing. I was feeling bad about myself.
Yeah.
And the way I decided to deal with this was to sort of put myself out there in a very.
But there's something in between putting yourself out there and your idea of selfishness is that it seems to me what you realized in that moment is that you were an artistic person, you were a creative person, you were somebody that wanted to express yourself. And
Yeah.
So that's you don't want to miss that part.
Yeah.
Is that this is the birth of an artist? It's not just like I didn't feel good and I was selfish and I needed everyone to see me.
Yeah. I mean, like, maybe I am minimizing it. But yeah, I definitely, when I think back to it, I definitely view it as this, and maybe this reveals something about my self-view. I feel very guilty about stuff like this, about wanting, because my relationship with attention is sort of weird. I crave it, but I feel horrible about craving it. So I sort of try to
That's better
subvert
than
that.
me. I crave it and I feel horrible about getting it.
Yeah.
I think you're in a healthier place.
I also feel pretty horrible about getting it sometimes, because then it's just like, well, it's like, screaming for attention and then suddenly the spotlight's on you. And it's like, wait, what was my plan here?
And then once you create something everybody likes, there's expectation. I mean, that's the next level of it. It's like, when's your new book coming out?
Yeah.
How come there's not a new blog post up? And you're like, what?
Well, right. Like I wanted all the good stuff without having like the responsibility of it.
Uh-huh.
And
Right. So you start doing this. So like in that moment where you took this selfish step to get attention.
Yeah.
That's when you started playing around with the paintbrush and when you started.
I was just writing it first.
So you started with just essays?
Yeah. So just
Journaling.
writing. Yeah.
Almost.
Sort of journaling. I wrote, I think the first thing I published was like an open letter to my neighbors who were just annoying sorts of neighbors.
Who were your inspirations for doing this? I mean, because you were always conscious that you were doing comedy and you were writing comedy and you were writing funny things. So like, who sort of gave you the idea that you could do that?
I mean, I've always been really into stand-up comedy.
Yeah.
And I've never felt, for some reason, I've never felt that I could personally do it. I actually think there was some blog that I'd seen, or maybe it was like I know I'd read a lot of like the best of Craigslist.
Uh-huh.
I was reading that, and then somebody wrote like a blog or a Tumblr where they had chronicled their experience living with like the worst landlord in the history of landlords.
Right.
And I think that was the one that was like, hey, this is a person just writing something on the internet.
Well, that's interesting.
Nobody gave him permission to do it. He just did it.
Right. And that's a generational difference in me. Like, this stuff was out there and you were sort of consuming it and you could see that you could do it.
Yeah.
Easily. And
so I was like, well, I want to see what happens if I try to do this.
Uh-huh.
And so I just started putting stuff out there.
What was the name of the site? Was it just on the Tumblr or?
Hyperbole and a Half.
Oh, it was always that.
Yeah, so it was always that. I don't know how I feel about the name now, but I know that when I was creating my blog, there was a form thing that I had to fill out the name of it before I was allowed to go further.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to get to the part where I could start writing. I was in one of those modes where I have to write now.
Yeah.
And so I just thought of like the first semi-clever thing I could think of.
And that's what it is?
That's what it's been ever since.
It's stuck.
It just sort of stuck, yeah.
So you're writing and you're starting to get reactions pretty quickly, or?
Yeah, I think that people started trickling out. I remember being really excited when I had like eight followers.
Yeah.
I was like, 8 entire people out in the ether are following me. Are paying attention to what I'm doing.
Right. And you knew their names, or at least their screen names.
Yeah.
Did you interact with them?
Yeah, I read their stuff.
Yeah.
And they read my stuff.
So how long did you just write before you what was the decision to start illustrating?
So the decision because I feel like stand-up was a huge influence on me, and I was very frustrated that I couldn't.
You never tried it.
I tried it. It was embarrassing to me. I've actually like worked out whole routines and recorded myself doing stand-up alone. And
I love the idea of people doing stand-up, for rehearsing stand-up. Years ago, there was this comedy booking agency that that used to book me on gigs, and the woman who ran it would get submission tapes. Mm-hmm. And there was this tape of this guy who obviously had a friend with a record of The Sound of Laughter of Canned Laughter. So it was just him in a basement against a wall, and he was doing his act, and then you just hear his friend drop the needle on the record of people laughing. It was a fucking masterpiece. All right, so you're obsessed with the stand-up thing.
So yeah, but because I like I feel like when you're communicating with someone live, you have a lot more access to other comedic tools, like facial expressions, body posture, tone of voice. And it was driving me a little bit crazy that I didn't have
and
those
immediacy.
Things. Yeah, and immediacy. And so for me, the drawings were a way to like bring in a little bit of that physicality to it. Put a facial expression in there. That's like, this is the tone that I'm attempting to convey.
Right.
And so
and
yeah,
you've
I think
never done any drawing.
I've done a lot of drawing. I drew a ton growing up.
It was something you like to do.
Yeah. And I got pretty good at it, I'd say.
Like, I used to read comics occasionally and graphic novels, but the experience of the emotions of these illustrations, just sort of really hammers it. Because I mean, you can read the joke and the joke will stand fine, but then when you keep going back and forth from, the writing to the character, it just keeps amplifying itself. It's a rare gift you have.
Thank you. I'm really bad at fielding praise.
All right. Well,
so I'm not going to.
Well, the question then is, you've had profound success with this. I mean, I don't know, how the book is selling, but I know that, the blog is extremely popular. And I was the one, the people I talked to people, I said, I'm interviewing her and they're like, do you read the blog? I'm like, there's a blog? Like I have the book. I have the book. And so now, like I just read the one that's up, the latest one up there about the dinosaur costume, which is hilarious.
Thank you.
The way that you're able, again, to sort of track your inner conflict, and find some resolution as an adult through these childhood experiences. Do you find you still have a resource of those left? That
I still have material left from my childhood?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm in the middle of writing a batch of stories for my second book now. And
How'd this do, the book?
It did well.
Yeah. Good.
It surprised me. I wasn't really expecting anything. Just sort of
Well,
like,
I gave to somebody who actually reads some of it to her kid.
That's cool.
But there's like an ability to do that. Like a kid of a certain age can probably identify with your childhood experiences. Like they're not, it's not dark in the way that you can't, like a sophisticated kid can, take it in and find it hilarious, especially the dog stories. Do you still have both those dogs?
Yep, still have them both. They're still as messed up as ever.
So you experienced the first wave of depression in 2010, and you stopped writing for a while?
Yeah, so I'd say it reached a point in 2010 is when the descent started, and it reached a head in late 2011, early 2012. That's when things were really bad for me.
And you were incapacitated.
Totally incapacitated, suicidal, just all of that. It was awful. And so that's when things were the absolute worst.
What did you do to help yourself?
I through the pleading of my mother and my husband, I went to a doctor and got put on antidepressants, and they took a long time to start working, but they eventually helped. It's sort of like to me, it felt like the effect of like a pain reliever on pain, where you can tell what's under there. You can tell that something's not right, but it's dulled. And so that's how my experience of antidepressants was.
But you were resistant to it?
Resistant to the idea of antidepressants? Yeah. Well, at first, because I don't need that. It's not gonna make a difference. Or
but
whatever.
Somebody who's so involved with their head, the idea of altering your head, even though you were uncomfortable, must have been like, well, then how can I trust anything if I'm
exactly? And I eventually just had to get desperate enough. I don't even want to be alive right now. This is obviously.
How'd your husband put up with that?
It was hard for him, just because I think it's difficult to see somebody you love just in such a dark spot.
Yeah.
And there was some degree of helplessness. I think he couldn't do anything.
And then also to sort of realize that it's got nothing to do with you has got to be a struggle of it.
Yeah, there's nothing he can do to help. There's nothing he can. It's tough to separate that. Because I'm so flat that there's nothing wrong in the relationship.
There was one thing you wrote in here, just in relation to my father, about seeing somebody who's like that and not understanding what there's a flatness to them that you can feel. You must have experienced some of that with your sister over your life. Yeah. That the despondency.
Yes.
That because I can tell when my dad's there within a second. It's just like it's
yeah. You said it
gone.
Sucks the air out of the room. It just sort of
yeah, it's like I guess if you haven't experienced it yourself or seen it in other people, it's really hard to explain. But I think you did a good job with it.
Thank you.
So did you stay on the medicine?
I actually just recently went off of it. And I feel it's been about 3 weeks, and I feel good. I feel normal.
Got you. Hopefully it lasts.
Yeah, I hope so.
But either way, I got you in a good window here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This is the first time I've felt more myself in 4 years, and who knows how long it's going to last.
But so you did all the writing about it afterwards, once you leveled off, got a little distance from it.
Yes.
But it was fresh enough to really have the feelings be tangible enough to communicate it so well in the book.
And I was still in it to some degree. I mean, I still felt depressed, just not. I wasn't bottomed out.
You weren't unable to do anything. Yeah, but I think that because you can feel the immediacy of it, but obviously you had some distance in order to have some.
I
hindsight.
wrote during the time, sometimes because I just didn't know what else to do, and so I'd sit down and write, and it was, in the form that it came out of me originally, it was very not funny at all.
Right, but were you able to use that later?
Yes, I was able to go back and look at.
So it was almost like I'm in hell.
Yeah,
there's nothing funny about this, but I got to do this, and then later you were able to contextualize it with some hindsight. Good. Yeah. We talked earlier about your sister's illness and bipolar, and that she ended her life. And how are you processing? What happened?
She so on New Year's Eve, she drove her car in front of a train, and that's how it ended.
On New Year's Eve.
New Year's Eve, yeah.
I've lived with some bipolar in my family, and there's always this sort of threat of that happening. But I mean, had she been suicidal before?
She'd made a couple attempts.
Oh, she had.
And never. It was the way my mom referred to it was like practice suicides, where she would do something, but it was clear that like she wanted to have an out just in case she changed her mind.
But was the consensus or the feeling in the family that she was probably going to do that, and that there was nothing anyone could do to stop it if she wanted to?
We always sort of feared it, but yeah, it's especially since it had happened a couple times. Like she made a couple attempts, but it never felt like she was really
committed.
Yeah, it didn't feel like she.
But
was
it wasn't
really,
a cry for help thing.
No,
because why couldn't they get her medicated properly?
They tried. She kept going off of the medication. She had a really hard time accepting that she needed the medication because she didn't like to see herself as somebody sick.
And also when they're manic,
right, you start feeling better about it.
Ugh.
And this was a depressive episode. She had recently tried to change up her medications, and it just wasn't working. It was a couple months where she was just totally, didn't have any emotional variation whatsoever. Just felt bored and detached all the time. I talked to her on the phone a few times just because like I've also been suicidally depressed, and we were able to talk a little bit about it. But I didn't feel like anything I could have said really would have helped much at that point.
Right. It's just horrible when it does happen, and you all knew that's what it was. It wasn't an accident.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it's just so weird. Like it just brought up a lot of weird stuff. I was pretty horribly depressed at that time period as well, and so I was having a hard time figuring out my emotions around it.
Uh-huh.
And then it brings up this whole thing where like my parents knew that I had been suicidal at some point, and suddenly there was this weird conversation where when I first got home for the funeral, my dad gripped me by my shoulders and looked at me in the face, just crying. He said, "You can't kill yourself. You can't do this. You're all we have left."
Really?
And it was just like this pressure, and it's sort of a fucked up moment because my immediate thought was, well, fuck. And like, now what am I going to use to comfort myself when things get like, now I'm not allowed to like.
Well, you can think about it.
Yeah, but now there's this weird thing of like, my dad's sobbing face holding me by the shoulders. Like,
well, thank God. Because no one wants you to kill yourself. But if that's going to be what it's going to stop you from doing it, that's fine.
See, I mean, there have only been a few, like maybe just the one time where I really seriously considered doing it. Other times it's more just been it's comforting to me.
Yeah, I used to do a joke about that.
Yeah, that there's an out.
Well, yeah, the joke I used to do was, I thought about suicide. I didn't really want to kill myself. I just found it comforting to know that I could if I had to.
Yeah, exactly.
Because there's that moment where you're like, why does everything have to... Hey,
yeah.
I could always kill myself.
It's another control thing.
Right, back to work. Why I actually tag it by saying it's the spiritual reprieve of the faithless.
Yeah, there you go.
It's dark.
Mm-hmm. No, it's sort of like the way you can let go, and people who are religious have that, and like, oh, there's a God,
right.
I can put my trust in this higher power.
Or that things will get better.
Yeah, that things will get better. And like, it's like, well, if they get too bad, at least I have an out.
Right. Well, they have God.
Yeah.
We have suicide.
Yes.
Suicidal rumination. I don't think that's a community builder.
No, not at all.
No church for that necessarily. Well, I'm sorry you went through that, but so now as somebody who how are you going to approach it? Are you going to approach it in your work?
I want to write about it at some point. I feel like it's important for my process of getting through it and sorting things out. And I mean, there's stuff that came up in me and in my family that I never would have thought of, as far as grieving goes, where it's like, the way that I work through things is I just talk them to death. Like when I'm stuck psychologically at a point where it's like, I just kept replaying the scene of like what her last moments must have been like. And I just over and over and over obsessively for days and weeks.
So do you have that morbid thoughts thing?
Yeah, definitely. Like my brain immediately goes to like the most morbid, horrifying way that it could have played out, and repeats that scene.
That's an OCD thing, right?
I suppose it probably
Maria
is.
has that too. Bamford has the morbid thoughts.
Yeah, where it's and my brain just does that, and so it's like, okay, well, I'm obviously stuck at some point, and I need to move past it. And one interesting thing I found out is that so when people were expressing sympathy to me, I'd get all these emails and stuff, and messages and phone calls from people, being like, I'm so sorry that this happened, and I noticed myself feeling almost guilty, like I was like, oh, I don't deserve this, I don't deserve your pity, I don't deserve this. And I looked back at like my sister and my relationship. We weren't especially close growing up. I mean, we had resolved our differences pretty much at this point, but I felt like from an outside perspective, I felt like, oh, I shouldn't be as sad as I'm feeling, because of we were a little bit distant. But then I was feeling like all of this genuine grief, but I wouldn't let myself sort of experience it because it's like, oh, you don't deserve to feel that. You don't, like, you weren't close enough to her to feel that. So I didn't like let myself go with it.
Right.
And so I was just stuck.
Right.
Until I could talk it out and realize that that's what's happening. And like, no, I really am feeling these things. Like I really did love her.
Sure. Yeah.
And yeah, so that was one of the interesting things that happened. It's just like I didn't expect myself to react that way.
Well, I think isn't that something that the human brain does? That I think that grief is so tricky that you don't want to be consumed with it.
Yeah.
So something's going to distract you. It's the denial, maybe not denial, but it's some version of the five. You know that you're going to feel these different levels of this, and the grief will kind of come up as it does, unless you're really good at repressing it, and then God knows what's going to happen.
You sort of have to ease into it like a hot tub.
Yeah. I think so. In a hot tub of your tears.
Yes. A hot tub filled entirely with
your tears. That's how you know you've been.
I couldn't cry, actually. I didn't cry until maybe 2 weeks after it had happened. I was so depressed and so emotionally like dead inside that I couldn't, and it was really frustrating to me because I saw myself not crying. I felt awful inside.
And you're beating yourself up for not crying.
For not crying. It's like, this is not a normal, this is what a psychopath would be like if, they were in this experience, having this experience.
Well, that's that piece in the book that my dad at his father's funeral was sort of manic. Mm-hmm. And it was really disconcerting.
Yeah. They were
so you're
just making jokes, making the rounds.
Yeah, you're probably, it's probably better the other way.
Yeah. Where I'm just like, well, yeah, I can't feel anything. And, finally at the funeral, I was able to cry, and it felt really good to have it come out, and and it came out all at once. It just hit me like.
Oh, that's good. Well, that must have been.
I was gonna say like a train, but that's.
And did it shake you from your depression at all?
I don't think it shook me from it, but it gave me some important insights into it. Mm-hmm. Just like that. One, when you're really depressed, you don't feel like you can take anything beyond the particular brand of misery that you're already experiencing, and then there's this thing, and 2013 was just sort of a fuck of a year for me.
Yeah,
I also had a personal cancer scare, major surgery, a bunch of stuff, just a ton of stuff happened, and I got in this like almost victim mindset of like I'm experiencing this horrible thing, and then everything is happening on top of it. Like that shouldn't happen. That's not fair. But there's no like universal justice system, right?
No.
So like there's nothing governing whether that can happen or not.
Do you want me to confirm?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, there is no universal system. You're just another person.
Yeah, just another person. So there's nothing like, oh well, clearly you've had it pretty hard, so we're gonna go easy on you for a little while. Like there's none of that.
But there is the human capacity to sort of get through things.
Yes.
And to integrate things, and to survive, and to flourish, and to learn from, and to realize that that's really it. That's better than being the victim mindset.
Yeah.
So, is that like, Jesus Christ?
Right.
I survived that at the worst time.
Exactly. And so I think that's the good that has come out of it. And looking back, it's like, wow, I'm pretty resilient.
Yeah.
I can, like, if I can make it through all that and still, it makes me a little bit less anxious and scared about the future, because I've seen like, okay, well, if I can make it through this clusterfuck of a year.
Sure. A cancer scare or having surgery for cancer and losing a sibling is about as bad as it gets.
And yeah. And so, and it it was horrible, but I know that I can get through it.
Sure.
And now that I'm experiencing this like reprieve of sort of relative normalcy, it's a good thing to have, because I can see that I've made it through that horrible stretch into to this little island of safety where I am now.
Yeah, you have a resilient spirit.
Yeah. And it's
That's
a good
where
thing
your
to know.
selfishness helps out.
Exactly.
How are your parents? All right.
It's hard to tell. My mom she always puts on the strong face.
Yeah.
Like she never wants to let me know that because she's a mom to her very core. She's the most mommiest mom person you can imagine. And so when it all happened, she didn't want to freak me out, didn't want to, so she, obviously the first day she was sobbing uncontrollably. But, later I'd say, "Look, how are you?" And she'd say, I'm doing okay, but I know from knowing her that that's less than true. I think now she's better, but she has days where she's not feeling okay.
And you can be there for her in those
Yeah. I try to be. I try to make myself available to her, but she still has this thing where like I'm the child, she's the parent.
Sure.
She doesn't want to.
Sure.
She feels like she's putting it on me, and I don't. To me, I'm pathologically helpful. I love helping. I want her to sort of unload some of that on me.
You are. Even if she doesn't let you.
Yeah.
Just by being on the phone, probably.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to second your father and say you can't kill yourself because you're the,
all right. Okay.
You're the only one left.
Now I'm going to see your face. So I'm thinking about.
Put
so now there's both.
There. Yeah. I'm sure your husband. You can add his face.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just add a bunch of. Add a whole
just
room
a
full
bunch
of people.
of just faces. Just
saying no. Go make a thing.
Yeah. Just go do something else.
Yeah. Go draw your thing. But here's the question: is that has any of because what I found from gaining some success doing my own thing and doing this was that there was a component that was always missing for me, which was a sense of genuine validation and self-esteem because of the effect it has, outside of me. Like all of this work lives outside of you, and you get some feedback, and that's validating. But the fact that you've created this thing and that you continue to create it, has that given you some chunk of yourself and your identity?
I think so. I mean, it's given me something to sort of attach onto, which is helpful because like it's sort of like an anchoring point. Like I'm out there sort of like I don't know what my sense of self is doing, but then there's this thing that can just sort of I can anchor it to.
But are you proud of yourself?
That I don't know. I think so. Like I'm happy with it. I'm happy with it. I look at I think I'm a little bit scared to be proud of myself because that sort of I've learned to be timid of those sorts of situations where I can sit back and be like, I'm proud of this.
Why? Because you just think like it'll make you just full of arrogance and
maybe I recognize that tendency in myself, and I don't want to give myself even the opportunity.
Yeah, but wait, but see, I have this struggle too. It's like, why can't we be happy with ourselves? I mean, like, why? What is the threat of saying like, I did a good job? Like then we're gonna stop?
Well, I think that I manipulate myself very much. Like the best self-control I have over myself is sort of this like fear that I can instill in myself. So if I sit back and feel like I've done a good job, I think somewhere deep down I'm afraid that I'm going to become complacent and that I'm no longer going to have this like cattle prod tool of fear that I've been using to drive myself. Yeah,
but I mean, how is it? Why wouldn't you call it self-hatred?
I mean, I think that there's certainly some degree of that as well, where I feel like I have to. I
mean, fear is reasonable, but to sort of go like, nah, you're still not quite there yet. No, good try.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, so do you ever look? I feel like I go through this cycle roughly every 2 to 4 years, where I look back at myself from 2 or 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's just, oh my God, what was I doing?
Right.
And I'm so ashamed of that person from years ago. And so I live with this constant suspicion that I'm going to feel that way, looking back at now, in 2 years, 4 years from now. And so maybe that's one reason why I don't want to be wrong. I don't want to be like, I did a good job and then be wrong in 4 years. I want to be like, I called it. I knew I was.
Yeah, but that's like a no-win situation.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's logical.
No,
it's not.
It's anxiety. It's dread. It's,
Yes.
It's all that stuff that you grew up with. It's fear of judgment. It's fear of
Exactly.
not being cool, and you don't want to, all of a sudden feel happy and then be told by who I don't know that you were wrong.
Yeah, so it's like a preemptive defense mechanism.
I know,
where,
but don't you think you don't you have? I mean, I would imagine through writing through your childhood and through the depression, that there is some self-acceptance. I mean, you can't.
Yeah.
I mean,
there definitely is some degree of it. I feel more comfortable with myself. I feel like I've ironed out a little bit more of who I am.
Yeah.
No, I'm definitely not there yet, but I feel more comfortable being in my head.
Right. But you know what the weird thing is, and I think this is something I can relate to only because I'm hearing you talk about this, and is that like you might be the only one that thinks this shit, because I mean, you're not some sort of weird, boundaryless, drifting person. Like, I definitely have a sense of you right now. I've been talking to you an hour and a half. And, there wasn't one point where I'm like, oh my God, she's just not clear on her personality. And it's weird. The room is filled up with this weirdness. I mean,
That's good to hear.
Right. But like a lot of times I talk about how angry I am and how fucked up I am. Yeah, I've done some shitty things in my life, and I've acted out of both, selfishness, sadness, self-loathing, anger, whatever, but for the most part, most people are like, I'm not seeing this idea you have of you.
Yeah, I mean that's sort of the impression I have of you, is that you don't seem like, because I've read a lot of your material, seen your stand up, and you just seem like a genuine guy.
Right. So why can't we accept that about ourselves? Wow, is that like 10 feet above the garage?
It's real close.
Wow.
We almost died.
Yeah, I know. I'm glad we made it through.
It almost crashed into the...
Yeah, it was so close. That would have been such an amazing ending for both of us.
Yeah.
Something completely out of our control for no apparent reason takes us out in the middle of a conversation about whether or not we can accept ourselves or have any control over the future.
And it's just like a point, like an exclamation point, a no, you cannot have control over the future. You will never have control.
It's over now. I guess it's good as long as we're not running from something.
Yeah, because then you ask all these questions that there's like no answer to, like what's...
Well, I think that's what's great about the book and about, the type of people we are in terms of what our creativity is. And I'm just comparing myself to you because I relate to you. It's just that that's what it is. They're really not answerable, but it seems like that asking them and living through them is something that people relate to, and that conversation is not really had that often.
Right, and it's what I appreciate about your work as well.
And I appreciate about yours.
Hey.
And I think this was good. You feel like we covered it?
I think so.
Well,
yeah, this was good.
It's great talking to you.
You too.
How was that? Was that amazing? She came down from the mountains. She came down from the hills. She came down from the north to talk to me. I love her. I love her. I had a great time talking to her. Hey, folks, don't forget, if you play fantasy football, head over to DraftKings.com to get in on the $100,000 contest this weekend. First place takes home $10,000. That's DraftKings.com. Promo code WTF. Go to WTFpod.com for all your WTF bees knees. Get the app. You're just getting into this. Get the app. Do it up. What else? Oh, Christmas is coming up. We're going to stock up the merch store. I think we're bringing back the Cat Negotiations t-shirt. We're bringing back the Boomer Lives t-shirts by request. I think Brian's going to make a few more mugs. I'll let you know when that happens. Boomer lives!